How about we start? Yeah, maybe we can start similar to last week. Refuge, Bodhicitta prayer, and the four measurables, and then maybe sit for a few minutes. Yeah. You can chant a couple times in Tibetan and then finish one time in English. That's okay. Sangye chodang sogi chodnama janju badu dagni gyapsu ji dagi chodnyang yibe zonam ki jola benje sangye drupasho Sangye chodang sogi chodnama chanju badu dagi gyapsu chi dagi chonye gibe zonangi chola benjir sangye drupasho. I go for refuge until I'm enlightened to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly. By the merits I create through listening to the Dharma, may I become a Buddha in order to benefit all sentient beings. Can you see that screen? The four measurables? No? Okay. No. Recite this maybe 3 times tonight. May all beings have happiness and its causes. May all beings be free from suffering and its causes. May all beings constantly dwell in joy, transcending sorrow. May all beings dwell in equal love for those both close and distant. May all beings have happiness and its causes. May all beings be free from suffering and its causes. May all beings constantly dwell in joy, transcending sorrow. May all beings dwell in equal love for those both close and distant. May all beings have happiness and its causes. May all beings be free from suffering and its causes. May all beings constantly dwell in joy, transcending sorrow. May all beings dwell in equal love for those both close and distant. And sit and follow the breath, or whatever technique you like to settle for just a couple minutes. And those that are just joining us, we're just doing some quiet breathing meditation just to kind of settle and relax and create some space before we start the class. And if it's helpful, you can allow the out breath to be a kind of settling, releasing, relaxing breath. So having a natural flow of breath, but on the out breath, allowing that to help us kind of settle into our body. And maybe just noticing the quality of our mind or our energy, where it's at as we breathe in this moment. And we cannot judge or want it to be different. Just noticing as we just bring our mind to the feeling of the breath as it moves through us. I invite just to give ourselves some space, giving our minds permission to drop what we've been doing, let go of what we may be doing later, and just enjoying being with the breath and sitting. Just relaxing with our present experience as we breathe. And one simple practice we can do to uh, help us develop a sense of connection. It can be a really good support for our mindfulness practice is setting an intention before consciously setting an intention or connecting with the quality of intention before we start something. Before we begin our discussion tonight, I just invite us to connect with kind of our heart's values and what's kind of a core sense of what's truly important to us. a sense of kindness, well-being, peace, joy, connection. And having a feeling of these values, qualities are true for us, and are truly meaningful for us. And from this place, we can set an intention that this discussion, this class will be kind of engaging with that intention, or an expression of these kind of heart values that we have. And because we're doing a Dharma class tonight, that they can be a support for us to continue to develop compassion, kindness, peace of mind, well-being, fulfillment, and so forth, and develop that capacity so that we can also bring these out into the world and be of benefit to others. And if you have an affinity for the kind of bodhicitta aspiration of awakening our full potential for benefiting all beings, it's kind of universal compassion, it's universal motivation. Connect with that and have an expansive view of our engagement tonight. Okay, great. So we'll go ahead and get started. With my mic trouble sometimes on Zoom, when I look up after these kind of guided meditations, I have a moment of like, if you heard anything, like we've just been kind of sitting in silence waiting for it's a funny moment for me. So this week we're in session 3 of a 4-session kind of exploration of this particular topic on what Buddhist tradition sees as kind of an ideal or kind of precious or perfect human life. And so the last couple of weeks we've been kind of going through Lamas Rinpoche's book, which is the kind of traditional progression of contemplations to start to elicit this kind of internal sense of appreciation and gratitude and for being alive and being able to see the potential from the Dharma perspective of the Dharma, the human potential is limitless and vast. Like the nature of mind is has this quality of innate freedom, innate peace, innate interconnection with all beings. That separation isn't there in the kind of the true nature of our minds, the true nature of reality. So there's great potential. And so, in essence, we kind of recognize, okay, I'm alive, and then I'm also what they call, we talked about the kind of freedoms from intense obstacles. So I mean, very kind of intense conditions or states of being that are just too overwhelming for us to develop our awareness, cultivate compassion, be able to meditate. Like it's just too overwhelming, and we went through some specific kind of too much violence, too much stifling poverty, political issues. So there can be cultural kind of external situations. There also can be internal kind of conditions that are just so too difficult for us to really cultivate our minds. So we're recognizing that we're free of those. And then we also have the kind of the resources and connections of the living kind of Dharma tradition or living wisdom tradition that's being alive and practiced now. We have internal interest and inclination to it that's profound, that we're not totally astray or aloof into things that just don't bring us any value or benefit, just by just what we get kind of caught up in or connected to, that we actually have been drawn and found these teachings on kind of the Buddha potential and the path to it. So it's kind of taking a step back and seeing that there's this opportunity, basically. And then the last week, what did we talk about last week? Last week we talked about how we can use, how we can use the. Take a step further.
Remember about last week was the only thing I can remember about last week was the setting your motivation for the day.
Uh-huh. Yeah, the rarity. Let me pull up my note real quick.
I wasn't here last week. Usually I take notes.
Can you read my notes?
Yeah, pull it up. Where is it?
We talked about taking vows and taking refuge in the three jewels and having a closer intentional remembrance of practice. Refuge practice is a cause for human rebirth. The 4 Mahayana Dharma wheels. Difference between an arhat and a bodhisattva, the tantric path, aspiring bodhicitta, engaging bodhicitta.
Oh yeah.
The 3 spheres, so generate the 6 paramitas.
Oh, nice.
A little on tantra.
So that was a lot of content that I forgot. We actually went into a lot last week. Also, we had a good class last week. Yeah. Okay, so that was kind of, so we filled out like the, seeing that the conditions are here for us, so we're kind of filling out what those conditions are and how we engage in the practices and the scopes of different scopes in Buddhism. So if we look at a multiple lifetime perspective, looking at Buddhist point of view, because of consciousness or awareness is not physical in nature, it's timeless, it doesn't have an end. So our kind of, in Buddhism, it's often referred to like our own mind stream, it's like an endless river, moment to moment, that continues on. even in our physical body can't hang with it anymore. And just to move on. So there's kind of how do we create conditions for our future to continue to have situations where we're kind of connected to the teachings. We can continue to cultivate our mind, continue to cultivate these positive qualities, generosity, compassion, mental stability, insight, and so forth. And primarily we do that through ethics. So ethical, having kind of a nonviolent, ethical kind of approach to life. Not disturbing ourselves, not disturbing others, not harming. That starts to create this kind of internal and external environment of peacefulness and goodness that we like, that from a karmic point of view, that are kind of the power of that goodness, the habitual power, the familiarity of that power of goodness kind of propels us or carries us through to the next lifetime and so forth. And so, there are vows that we can take to help support our ethical practice. So taking refuge vows, or taking what they call individual liberation vows, so abstaining from killing, stealing, lying, sexual misconduct, and intoxication. And those you can take for your whole lifetime. And we mentioned the power of there's a difference from taking a lifetime vow versus just trying not to kill or trying to be ethical. Like there's a force, an impact the vow has that we're constantly practicing nonviolence, even if there isn't, we're not in a situation, even if we're sleeping, we're still actively engaging in non-killing, not stealing, we're actively engaging in nonviolence because the force of our this kind of vow and commitment that we take. So practice of vows is a kind of a root, one of those foundational practices that we can engage in when the timing feels and inspiration is there for us. We can, and there's also the Bodhisattva vow that we can take once we've had this vision of enlightenment and wanting to kind of make our spiritual path a universal spiritual path where the enlightenment is not just for our own liberation, but that we can use this, that we basically want to become the greatest vehicles and most skilled at being of service, so that our whole our existence is just a spontaneous service to beings to help other beings wake up. And there's so that path is the Bodhisattva path, and we can take that as just an initial inspiration and aspiration and view and make prayers and kind of contemplate that, learn about it. And at some point, if we want to, we can formally take a Bodhisattva vows, and there's some vows that kind of give us guidelines that kind of help us to embody this kind of selfless, brave, wise being. And then from this tradition, there's within the Bodhisattva practices, there's what they call the paramitas, or the perfections of generosity, ethics, patience, joyful enthusiasm, or joyful effort, or perseverance, and then meditation and wisdom. And then there's the tantric path, where we can engage in what's called deity yoga, and certain kind of more intense practices to help speed up the journey based on that bodhisattva intent. And then there's the tantric practices have a kind of container of vows and and so forth that we can take. And those all have their kind of impact and power for us as supports. Yeah, and so this vision of the path, the vision of our nature and the vision of the path to actualize it, is an important contemplation for us and to develop enthusiasm for having this, our contemplations of having perfect human life, or kind of actualizing that, kind of realizing this truth. And so, first class thing mentioned the whole path, the gradual path to fruition, and this Tibetan Buddhism can kind of be sectioned off into two. One is this kind of contemplation of developing this appreciation of our life opportunity, and then actually utilizing it. So feeling the preciousness, and then engaging, going into action, making use of the life. So there's a lot of analogies of, like, we found Lamas of it's mentioned, like, it's like finding a lottery ticket or finding a jewel in a trash can, where, and it's kind of like, just, if we're just totally lost in life, no sense of vision, no sense of kind of cultivation or purpose, or like, what am I doing? Just kind of whatever's in front of my nose, kind of attitude, or thinking that whatever, people kind of get to different types of journeys, whatever. But yeah, finding this something that kind of gives us this reflection of the nature of our minds and potential of our minds. So that's where we're at. It's kind of catching up to where we've gone, what we've done so far. And then tonight, in Rinpoche's text, it's about kind of what gets in the way. So it's like, oh, this beautiful path, how nice, and then what kind of gets in the way from us kind of engaging in it. And one primary teaching, I'll share the list, is called the kind of eight mundane concerns, or sometimes it's translated 8 worldly dharmas. And I'll just share my screen. So these are kind of translator listed in many different ways. And I found it interesting, actually, that Rinpoche used the word craving for all of them, actually. And so there's kind of 4, but each one has a flip side. So there's craving for material possessions, and then craving to be free from the lack of material possessions. So, chasing wealth or financial security or material security, and then also thinking of, like, fearing or being afraid of losing, or being impoverished. Craving for happiness and comfort, and then craving to be free from unhappiness and discomfort. Craving for a good reputation, and then craving to be free from a bad reputation. Sometimes I've seen this as, kind of chasing praise and avoiding or being afraid of criticism. Oh no, that's the next one. Of kind of or kind of chasing fame or kind of importance and so forth, of being afraid of feeling irrelevant or whatever, or a bad reputation. And then craving for praise and craving to be free from criticism. So praise and blame. So the craving part is kind of the key. There's like this kind of perpetual unease or anxiety or itch, kind of, or fear. And it's like the drive. It's like a drive. There's a drive for material possessions. There's a drive to not fall into poverty. There's a drive for comfort. There's a drive to avoid discomfort. And these are kind of maybe conscious, but often kind of unconscious, kind of what's kind of motivating us. And these can kind of set up our whole life. We might have some early life thing that we went through, and there's something in us like, may I never have that happen again. And there's like a positive side to that, but there could be this kind of pressure, internal pressure, that is pushing us in ways that have all kinds of side effects and aren't actually bringing us peace or fulfillment. It's not like, if we're driving for wealth out of something of, but we're kind of also running away from something, and that running away from this kind of stress. Pause. Just wanted to check in. Anybody have? Just kind of open the floor for thoughts or discussion, comments, questions.
It's not pertaining to this, but it was last week's class. It's still an unclear question for me. We went through aspiring bodhicitta, developing the wish or intention to be loving and kind and compassionate. And then there's engaging bodhicitta, doing the actions, the 6 paramitas, actually doing the stuff. And then Lou chimed in at that point and said something about contrived bodhicitta, and then I read something recent about contrived and uncontrived. Is that aspiring and engaging, or are there 4 kinds of bodhicitta? Good luck.
I know. I was looking through. I saw. I have a stack of books. I was trying to find, particularly around the intention, the time, and then like causal tension. I was not finding where I read it before. So I did look up. I wanted to get just like a definition of engaging bodhicitta. And I found this on it's a really robust website called studybuddhism.com. Oh. Okay. What was I saying? Okay. I'll just skip to the last part. So I looked up the definition for engaged bodhicitta, and there might be different kind of takes on this from different traditions or teachers. But I found this from Alex Berzin's website. It's called studybuddhism.com. It's a huge, beautiful, great resource. So many talks and topics, and it's like almost like a Wikipedia. And Alex Berzin's really long time student translator. So aspiring bodhicitta, is that kind of the aspiration to realize our potentials to benefit everyone. And then engaged bodhicitta means engaging in the practices that bring about this goal and taking bodhisattva vows to restrain from the like in this tradition, the 18 bodhisattva vows are like avoid not doing this, like different ways of going against the bodhisattva ideal. So avoiding those. So it's having that aspiration and then engaging in the paramitas, the perfection practices, and taking bodhisattva vows. So engaged bodhicitta is defined, and he says the difference between the two levels is similar to that between wishing to become a doctor and actually entering medical school.
If you want, I can explain contrived and uncontrived again.
Yeah, please.
Bodhicitta, uncontrived bodhicitta is that the wish to help someone without thinking about it. It's not like you see someone in trouble and you have to sit there and say, I want to help that person. I'm going to help them. It's like if you have uncontrived bodhicitta, you're going to help them. You don't think about it. It's instantaneous. That's the way your mind is. You've lost all sense of self and you only exist for the other person. Until that happens, that doesn't mean you can't practice bodhicitta, but you have to contrive it. You have to sit there and say, I will do this. Okay.
Yeah, I'll add. Yeah, thanks. That's brilliant. And in terms of with contrived bodhicitta in the tradition, there's different techniques for developing it gradually. So, and there's ones called the bombarding with information, but the one famous one's the 7 cause and effect. Where we start with equanimity, and then the contemplation that all beings have been our mothers. If minds have been infinite, then we've all been related. We've all done it over and over. Yeah. And so that, and the mother ideal, in traditional culture, maybe in modern culture, it's a little tricky. But in traditional cultures, the mother is used as a symbol of just kind of a ordinary symbol of selfless compassion, selfless love. So, so in earlier times, mother was kind of almost like that archetype of mother where there's just it's just a great example of selfless love. Not necessarily such an easy symbol for modern or Western folks at times. So this one's been a tricky one for in the West. But that's the point. So you could also be like your bestest friend ever. But the selfless kind of devotion is the point, to see like all beings have been selflessly just kind, extraordinarily kind to me at some point, because of this kind of infinite dynamic of the universe. And then that you build on that, and then it's so then remembering the kindness. So if everybody's been kind to us, like thinking of that kindness, and then that builds into, well, since all beings have been so kind to me, I want to repay it. So there's this kind of emotion, this kind of contemplation to elicit this conviction or emotion, this wish of gratitude. I want to repay. I have the sense of gratitude. I want to repay all beings. And then, so we get to that point, and then we build on that with love and compassion meditation. So then we see like, okay, I want to repay them. And then we look at how the conditions everyone's in. So we see that beings want happiness, but we don't have it, hardships of life, the dissatisfaction, so forth, being suffering. So we develop love and compassion, and then we take that to a universal level and wanting to free all beings. And then that gets us to the point like, okay, I want to help all beings, but how do I do it? And the means to do it is this Buddhahood idea, whereas it's the greatest doctor, the kind of Maha doctor or whatever. It's like, I want to help beings, so I become a doctor or I become a scientist or whatever. The Buddha is this kind of just a fulfillment of all capacity and knowledge. So that aspiration for Buddhahood those are all those kind of, that force behind it is this kind of connection, affection, gratitude, love. And I should have mentioned that the ground is, the first ground to develop this kind of bodhicitta process is the equanimity. So developing equanimity and kind of melting our categories of friend, enemy, stranger. So close, irrelevant. So, people who I favor, people who they're strangers, they're irrelevant to me. I don't have any affect to them. And it's not just I don't know them, it's just like almost like a dullness, like it's just like blah, like whatever, and then those are challenging for us. And so we try to smooth that ground out to kind of overcome our biases, or kind of at least glimpse beyond the bias, see that it's possible to have this unbiased kind of relationship to beings. And then from there we start to build kind of this kind of affectionate awakening. Like another way, bodhicitta, bodhi in Sanskrit's awake, and chitta can mean mind or heart. So sometimes it's translated in English as awakening heart, the heart of awakening, or the heart that's aspiring to awakening. So, yeah. So that's one method, and there's another method of where there's contemplations where it's called equalizing and exchanging self and other. And so we start to play with this concept of self and other. So there'd be like thoughts about like, okay, there's a sense that I'm the kind of, at least for my world, that I'm most preoccupied with myself, and I'm most interested in kind of taking care of myself and fulfilling myself, whatever. But if I'm only counted as one, self is one and others are infinite. So others actually, if I'm going to care for one, why not care for a billion? And so in a way, a billion is more of a valuable investment than just one. So it's kind of like logics that kind of start to shake up our assumption that I have to care for myself we still have to care for ourselves, but it's like not, and it's a way of like a self-preoccupation or a kind of contracted, kind of small-minded way. This is more like an inclusive, it starts to kind of become inclusive. And the equalizing part is like it's just equalizing that sense of self-importance to like, actually, we're all in the same boat. One being is not more valuable than another. And allowing that kind of insight to help thaw out our intensity or whatever, that kind of small-mindedness or whatever. Like these kind of contemplations are actually supposed, if we do it without a sense of self-hatred, if we actually do it, it hits the mark. It's supposed to just help us relax and feel interconnected, feel as a citizen of the universe, citizen of the world. Like this evenness actually is very peaceful. It's not like a bland evenness. It's like it's well-being. It's a kind of peace, because our small-mindedness creates the more we go against that truth, the more anxious, the more self-preoccupied. Like self-preoccupation is endless, and it stirs us up. It's bad for our nervous systems. There's science showing that we are a communal species, and like compassion and connection and so forth. It's like necessary for our nervous systems and our survival. So it's just trying ways to start to open up. And then another practice that maybe you heard of is the giving and taking practice, Tomlin. This is so here we meditate on, we'll take someone else as an object, and be willing to experiment with taking in their suffering and then giving them happiness. And this is another way of kind of opening the heart and dissolving this kind of self-other rigidity. Yeah. Any other questions coming up or thoughts you can bring up?
Justin, I have a question.
Mm-hmm.
So the way to address the 8 worldly dharmas, which get in our way, are through meditation and purifying and things like that. Specific meditations on maybe each of the 8, maybe each of the 4 major ones. Is that correct?
Yeah. Yeah, one I've seen, so it can be contemplating. So the goal of meditation is kind of self-compassion. We develop a sense of self-compassion, like seeing how it bothers us, how like this kind of these drives, subconscious drives, to start, just kind of get us caught up in loops, and like we talk about, like, oh, I'm a people pleaser, whatever, and it makes me act in a certain way that's not genuine, and then, or I take on stuff that I shouldn't be taking on to please someone, and look how has that impacted my life? How is this drive for material possessions? How has it worked out? How's it impacted my life? And we can keep it. The none of those objects. Yeah. So it could be like looking at how those things have impacted us, seeing what are strong, which ones are strong for us, Um, one way of looking at the different eight of pain, pleasure, praise, blame, so forth, is that none of them are inherently good or bad in themselves. So wealth can be beneficial. Losing your wealth can be beneficial. Being praised can be not beneficial. You know? Like if we get praised all the time, we might get an inflated sense of ourselves and kind of become kind of annoying or whatever. Criticism could be positive. Comfort can be positive, or comfort can be helpful. Like when we meditate, we should be comfortable. So relatively comfortable, because it's conducive, because it's help. It helps us to relax and to cultivate, go further. So comfort itself isn't bad, but it's the clinging, the kind of, it's the rigidity, like the inflexibility. It's like when we spot ourselves being inflexible or it's too much. Sickness might, and sometimes it's common, like, oh, I needed to get sick actually because I was just going and going and going. Like this, this flu got, like, I really needed to be in bed for like 3 or 4 days. Like I haven't rested in like 5 years or whatever, like sometimes like something can just come in and stuff. So there's no inherent good or bad in any of them. They're also impermanent or changing or dependent. So like seeing that they're fleeting, praise comes and goes, criticism comes and goes, money comes and goes, comfort comes and goes. So seeing their transience, especially if there's one that's particularly strong for us. One powerful meditation from one of my teachers, Yangtze Rinpoche, he quoted, it's from Shanti Deva's The Bodhisattva's Way of Life. I don't remember what chapter it was, but it was around the praise and criticism, and how it's acknowledging like there's always going to be somebody's praising me, somebody thinks well of me. There's always going to be at least somebody, and then there's always going to be somebody that criticizes me or doesn't think well of me. And to include both, so not having kind of black and white either or thinking, but just like, there's always going to be somebody who praises me, so I don't need to get too down on myself. There's always going to be somebody who criticizes me, so I don't need to get too high on myself. And he was describing this, saying if we can meditate on that every day for a few weeks, the idea is that we start to develop an equanimity towards ourselves, like almost like a self-equanimity, or a kind of an even, easygoing relationship, self-image, or like I'm not perfect and I'm not terrible. Like I'm, got some qualities, I have some hang-ups, whatever. And being able to hold both of those, develop familiarity or sit in that, hold those two, he says it can be very, very powerful to start to have a more kind of balanced sense of self. So if that was, particularly like if we're perfectionists, that can be a very powerful medicine to help kind of ease balance of self. And then the last thing I would say too is from another point of view of like just noticing our reactions and not judging our reactions. So if there is fear there, if there is a charge for one of those things, that there might be some underlying something there for us. That, you know, something that's trying to tell us. There could be some wound there, maybe. Like I said, like maybe something early in our life happened, and we just didn't want that to happen again. So we kind of went on a path to do that, and so there can be some something there that's that can be helpful to listen to. Like one of the things, like the preoccupation with the external, like, okay, I don't want to ever be poor, for example. So we just go and go and go, and maybe all we needed to do was hear, like, feel that whatever the vulnerability was there that was trying to that drove us to avoid it. Sometimes, like, oh, actually, I just felt this as a little boy or whatever. And then that gets released, and then it's like, oh, the pressure is not there, and I don't buy into it anymore. Like, oh, what was I doing? You know, why was I so driven in that way? So that can be another part of our process, you know, part of our journey with it, kind of breaking free of this kind of.
Thank you, Justin.
Yeah. Yeah, Lamas Rinpoche gave an interesting example of seeing how this kind of manifests. And you talking about when he's flying in airplanes. Yeah, and he was just noticing that everybody seems so uncomfortable in airplanes, like we're all fidgeting. Like there's no escape, there's nowhere we can go. And the squirming and the fidget, and he was saying that no matter how well dressed they are, no matter what delicious food they eat, to me they seem very uncomfortable. Like they have some skin disease that they need to scratch but can't. Like they're a goat on a very steep mountain, unable to take one step forward because of danger of falling over the cliff. Yeah, Rinpoche said the need for comfort, possessions, friends, praise, reputation, and freedom from discomfort, poverty, loneliness, blame, and bad reputation traps us. It locks us into endless work and never allows us to turn our mind toward Dharma. It makes us so busy that we never even have time to see how destructive or painful this neediness is. Yeah. Any other thoughts, questions coming up? Comments? Yeah. So we've usually been finishing with meditation on the Buddha. And traditionally so when we do like contemplations on the gradual path and we take particular topics, we can do them in different places. Sometimes we might start a meditation with contemplation. So like we start tonight meditation on precious human life, and allow that to be kind of a motivation that kind of frames our practice. You can also do it at the end, or some kind of prayers that kind of summarize the path and kind of that you can recite as like kind of like what they call like a glance meditation, or kind of glance reflection on the stages of the path. And we can use these prayers as kind of signposts. So like we can stop at a particular topic. So for meditating on precious human life, you start the prayer, and then when it gets to the topic of the precious human life, you can stop there and then do a contemplation and meditate on that to help start to kind of cultivate your understanding. And then once you're kind of gone through that, then you finish the rest of the prayer. So you kind of glance the rest of the path, but you kind of go in depth on one topic. And then maybe the next week you go to the next topic, which is death and impermanence. And so then you recite up to the death and impermanence part. And then you can stop there, do kind of an in-depth meditation there until you're ready to move on, and then finish the prayer as a glance. So in that way, it's like you're getting a kind of imprint of the path, or kind of a kind of remembrance of this kind of full vision. But for time, if we stopped and did in-depth, we'd take all day. You can do like a 12-hour meditation session. So you just kind of take them at chunks. And then when we're doing that, one way of engaging is to kind of see the world. So once we do that kind of meditation in our sitting practice, then we can kind of get up and see the world through that lens. So we can, Rinpoche was saying in the text, like we can use anything that's happening in our day as a reminder to reflect on it through the lens of precious human life. It's just like things just kind of keep coming up. So then it's deepening into our system. Or if death and permanence is our topic, like throughout the day, we do a meditation on it in the morning, and then we use that to kind of come back to it throughout the day and kind of look at life through change. Look at life through that. Or we look at life through bodhicitta, or we look at life through emptiness, or we look at life through Four Noble Truths, whatever we want to engage that way, whatever kind of topic we're working with at the time, we can have our formal practice and then our active contemplation. And then the other thing I'll just mention, ideally we want to balance kind of contemplative thought, and then if we do have some sort of clarity or some like something kind of becomes strong in us, like a sense of gratitude, like I think about this, and it's like, oh yeah, that's true, and I feel a sense of gratitude. Or death and permanence, like, oh yeah, it's true that that truth is vivid to me right now. Then we can just rest in that. So then we just kind of stop the mental activity and just kind of be with what's dawned there. So the emotion, the feeling. And so that becomes our kind of single-pointed abiding. Just like we may abide our attention on the breath. Once we have elicited some sort of clarity or understanding or kind of emotion, we can just rest in that. I like to think almost like marinating in it. It's like we're just kind of really kind of imbuing ourselves at the felt level. And, if that starts to kind of die off, then we can kind of remember what brought that up. Like just kind of reflect again on the point that really kind of brought it to our understanding, to kind of build the strength back up. And then once that strength's there, we can kind of again stay with it at the felt level. For as much time we have for the contemplation practice. So it's kind of like we're merging together insight practice, so the analytical or the contemplative, asking questions, thinking about it, thinking about the reasonings, seeing if it resonates with us, finding some truth to it, and then resting in the single-pointed practice. So single-pointed and insight are the kind of the two branches of Buddhist meditation. Pretty much any Buddhist practice either falls into the category of shamatha, or kind of single-pointed resting, or insight, analytical, kind of contemplative practice. So we don't want to always just kind of ruminate. We want to get to a place. If we find a place that something's like, okay, that's alive for us, I feel that gratitude, I feel that inspiration, something's clear, then just kind of rest in it. And then in this tradition, we tend to use a Buddha deity, a meditational Buddha, to help with brightening the mind, creating positive energy. The Buddha image it's like a reflection of our Buddha nature, and the Buddha always dissolves into us as a kind of reminder of that the nature of our mind has this Buddha potential, but there isn't the separation is just a label. There's no true separation in the nature of reality. And something that kind of inspiration or kind of blessing, you could say maybe vitality that it brings can help support our contemplation practice too. So maybe we'll finish the last. Anyway, any last questions about what it's talked about? And just do a short meditation. Okay, so just kind of take a comfortable seat. If we can just drop what we've been thinking about and touch into the breath, moving of the breath. And again, reflect the preciousness of our opportunity, feeling a sense of gratitude for being alive. We're just noticing that we're alive right now. And anything in particular inspired us tonight? Any topic? Any insight about the path, our potential? Any desire that we have to continue our studies, our practice, that we want to engage in? And the teachings say it's very beneficial to pause and see that this is our interest and our desire to practice, study, embody the teachings. Is making this life so beneficial. And we can pause and feel a sense of joy in our effort and interest. And even if we haven't reached our goals, how wonderful it is that we've made these connections, found these resources, have this interest and drive that's led by compassion and wisdom. And within the space of awareness, in the space in front of you at the level of the forehead, appears an 8-petaled white lotus in the nature of life. And on top of the lotus appears a white disk of moonlight. The lotus represents the wish to be free of suffering. And the moon disk, the heart of bodhicitta. And on the lotus and moon disk rises the Buddha Shakyamuni. The Buddha is seated in a full lotus posture in the saffron robes of a monk. His left hand rests in his lap with a begging bowl full of nectar. And his right hand rests over his right knee in the gesture of earth touching mudra, representing his confidence and awakening. And the Buddha smiles with narrow, compassionate eyes, like a loving parent for their child. And is radiant golden in color. And sits within an aura of radiant golden light. And if the details are difficult, the main practice is just having a felt sense of the presence of the Buddha, however you understand. This kind of powerful presence of unconditional love, wisdom. The Buddha is a manifestation of our own nature of our mind, which is by nature free, boundless, spacious, radiant, radiating love like the sun without discrimination. And here we can meditate on a sense of refuge in these qualities and make any requests to help clear any particular obstacle, sickness, emotional, any sort of obstacle that's challenging us to continue to awaken our potential and be a benefit of others. It could also be a request to enrich certain qualities that we need on our path. And from the Buddha's heart, based on our requests, radiant golden light and nectar-like energy pours out and descends down through the crown of our heads, This radiant golden light and nectar is to flow down, filling every cell in our body, helping to clear and remove anything we need healed or cleared. This radiant, loving wisdom energy of the Buddha also enriches and brings out any qualities that we need. And as the light and nectar continue to flow down through us, we begin to hear the sound of the mantra emanating from the Buddha's heart. And if you need, the mantra is on the screen. Daya da mani mani maha manaye so Daya da mani mani maha manaye so Daya da mani mani mahavanaye 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 so We can rest in quiet awareness, just resting with whatever felt quality remains from the mantra. And then we become aware again of the Buddha in the space before us. And the Buddha comes to rest above our heads, facing the same direction as us. And the Buddha melts into golden light and descends down into us, touching our hearts, and again pervading our body. We can rest with a sense of oneness with our nature of our mind and the nature of the Buddha's mind is the same. Like a drop of water into the ocean. We can dedicate together. This is the Shanti Deva prayer. Can you see it on your screen? May all beings everywhere, plagued by sufferings of body and mind, obtain a notion of happiness and joy by virtue of my merits. May no living creature suffer, commit evil, or ever fall ill. May no one be afraid or belittled with a mind weighed down by depression. May the blind see forms and the deaf hear sounds. May those whose bodies are worn with toil be restored and find repose. May the naked find clothing, the hungry find food. May the thirsty find water and delicious drinks. May the poor find wealth, those weak with sorrow find joy. May the forlorn find hope, constant happiness, and prosperity. May there be timely rains and bountiful harvests. May all of medicines be effective and wholesome prayers bear fruit. May all who are sick and ill quickly be free from their ailments. Whatever diseases are in the world, may they never occur again. May the frightened cease to be afraid and those bound be freed. May the powerless find power and may people think of benefiting each other. As long as space remains, or as long as sentient beings remain, until then may I too remain, to dispel the miseries of the world. Thanks again. Good night.
I just didn't thank you very much.
Yeah. Good night,
Thank
everybody.
you.
Thank you.